Anybody here in the process of a transition? What's your transition? You have a new pastor coming, okay? Anyone else in transition in any way in your life? I'm going to suggest just a few, as we think about transitions this morning. How many of you have heard of artificial intelligence? A couple of you, okay. How many of you use artificial intelligence? I don't see many hands. How many have one of these in your pocket? Let me tell you, you're using artificial intelligence. The good and the bad of artificial intelligence is you don't know what's true and what's not true, right? There's a lot of information on this that you need to be careful of, and yet when people ask me a question, I say, well, I have to get my brain out of my pocket because it has information that I would like to have up here, but I don't have immediate recall for it any longer. So, as a culture, we're in the process of artificial intelligence. You see pictures on Facebook and that sort of thing, and in one picture you'll see them maybe dressed like this, the same faces, everything. And then there's another picture there where they're all dressed in Western outfits. I don't know how they do that. I don't do that, but you just never know exactly what you're experiencing with artificial intelligence. How about how we get our news today? Now, I'm like most of you. I was raised in the 50s and the 60s. And we got our news what? We heard Walter Cronkite or the Brinkleys or I forget what the other one was. And that newscast was how long? About 15 minutes, right? I was raised in Spartansburg. I didn't know a whole lot that went on in the world outside of Spartansburg. Now, I had a dad that worked at Talon, so we knew a little bit about Meadville. We knew where you could buy clothes with Talon zippers. That was always a requirement. Today, how do you get your news? Many of us here still get news by a newspaper, but maybe it's different than we used to. You used to have that physical paper that you'd open up, but most of us now have a computer or an iPad or some other vehicle where they give us the news that way. And they don't have to pay for a paper or delivery or anything. It just comes to us. And then others of us get news on what? Podcasts. If you don't know what those are, ask your grandchildren. They know all about them. Or you can get your favorite news, CNN, Fox, or News Nation. Lots of places are available. But our lives are in transition. Some we like and some we don't like. We're in transition in terms of what community is. Spartansburg probably had 250 people in it when I went to school. We had one grade for each class, about 30 children in class. And our community was there. Most of our teachers lived in Spartansburg or Sparta Township. But today, our kids and our grandkids are experiencing community in a much different way. Again, because of what? This instrument here, many of our kids, and adults too, for good and for bad, they have their community on an instrument that we call a cell phone. And sometimes it's very tragic, other times it's like all things. There's good and there's bad. But community is different today. We all used to see our doctor face to face. I don't know if you did the newest thing, but what? You get you bring it up on your iPad or your phone, and you see the doctor, and your doctor sees you, but it's not a face-to-face kind of contact. Financially, my grandparents had one kind of financial instrument. What was that? It was cash, right? And then something new and fantastic came along. And it was called a check. Now, when I went to college, there were not tables set up with 4 or 5 people trying to give me a credit card. But you know, when my girls went to college, as they entered their freshman week or freshman day, you had to go through a number of tables of people saying, here, sign up for my credit card. Sign up for my credit card. You know, things change financially. A couple years ago, I paid to have my lawn mowed because we're away in March and half of April, and sometimes we get home till May. And I'd always called a friend that mows lawns in our neighborhood. And so I texted Gary and said, will you mow my lawn when you're in the neighborhood? And he wrote back, well, I'm not taking any new customers. But his next text was the thing that really surprised me, because I had paid a couple years before and he had not been able to mow, so he had some of my money. I wasn't going to mention that to him. But he texted back, he said, do you use, is it Vimo or Vomo? What is that? Okay, Venmo. Or do you have PayPal and I'll give you your money back? I had never gotten money back that way. So finances are different. So if you'll take your bulletin up, we have some verses that I think might help us as we go through transitions. I have to kind of watch here so I don't talk to you too long. Okay, here we go. But in your bulletin, the verses are printed, I think. Are they printed? I don't know. I guess not. Oh, well, that's too bad, because I wanted you to have these. Okay, the first verse is taken from Genesis chapter 12, verses 1 and 2. And it involves the person Abram. Everyone knows who Abram is in the Old Testament in Genesis. And Abram is the one that starts the story of what? God's people. And this is what God said to Abram, and we want to think about this. The Lord said to Abram, go from your country, your people, your father's household, to the land I will show you, and I will make you a great nation. I will bless you, and I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. Now, I want you to know, in our family, my wife is the one that loves to do new things. I'm the one that if I used it before and I liked it, I'm going to do it that way. So it's always interesting in our family. Now, God says to Abraham, I want you to leave your father's household, your homeland, everything that is known to you, and go to a new land I'm going to show to you. Transition, a difficult transition to me. I'm not sure I would have raised my hand and said, I'm all ready to go. Jolene would have been on the first wagon train rest. I'm not sure I would have been with her on the wagon train. She likes new things. We have a grandson that in about a month will be headed to Taiwan for 4 years as a missionary. And we're starting to experience a little bit of what God asked of Abram. We're not going to Taiwan, but Liam and Mary B. and our great-grandson Michael are going to Taiwan. They're going to leave everything that is common and normal to them. So transitions are a time where we're asked to go to new places that can kind of seem scary to us, or that can seem like a great adventure. So that's Genesis. The next one is in Isaiah as we think about transitions. Isaiah in chapter 43, verses 18 and 19 says this, forget the former things, do not dwell on the past. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up, you do not perceive it. It's difficult for us not to want to live in the past, particularly if the past has been good, you know. But Isaiah gives us a word here. As your new pastor comes, one of the challenges that you're going to have is that you are not to live in the past. Now, I know that's not going to be true, okay? But it might be something worth thinking about. And the other thing here says in Isaiah, it says, I'm doing a new thing. I can guarantee you when your new pastor comes, your new pastor is going to want to do some new things. And that's going to be hard for you and the pastor, because we know how things have always been done at Old Stone Church. So we need to hear Isaiah. It says to us, don't dwell in the past. If you want to be renewed and refreshed, when the new pastor comes, the new pastor is going to have some new things that maybe you haven't thought about before. And so you might want to look at Isaiah chapter 43. Then we come to Joshua chapter 1, verse 9. And it says, have I not commanded you, be strong and courageous? Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. For the Lord your God will go with you wherever you go. So as we do new things, as the new pastor comes, maybe as some things change and are unsettled, what Joshua wants you to know is that even though it's new and unsettled and maybe it wouldn't be your first choice, the reality is that the God that has been with you these last 3 years with Kendra, and maybe the last 50 or 60 years with various pastors, that God is going to go with this congregation individually and collectively into a new day. And so you need to be courageous. Don't be afraid. Don't be discouraged. The Lord your God will go with you. There's a place in the Bible that says what? God is the same. Yeah, come on now. Help me. You always help me. God is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Okay? It's a good thing to be reminded of as we go to new places and do new things. The next one is Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 and 6, as we think about transitions. In Proverbs, it says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not to your own understanding. In all your ways, submit to him, and he will make your path straight. So the first part is pretty easy for me. Pastor Jim just says there, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Now I want you to know the next phrase is more difficult for Pastor Jim. It says, and lean not on your own understanding. I just want you to know, I usually think I have the best idea. Even when I talk to God. God doesn't listen necessarily to what my ideas are. But the tendency is that we think we have everything all figured out. And so this is just a good reminder in transitions. We cannot always lean to our own understandings. Proverbs says that. The great preacher said that. It says, if you submit to him, he will make your path straight. So I encourage you in this transition to trust in the Lord. And quite honestly, you're not going to get everything you want with your new pastor. I'm just going to tell you that straightforward up front. Maybe after 10 years you will, but initially you're not going to think you're getting everything. But don't lean under your own thinking process. Trust God in the transition that God is doing a new thing. And then I have one more for you. And I'm sorry they're not printed in a bulletin because I really wanted you to have these to take home. The next one is from Philippians chapter 1, verse 6. This was a Bible verse I always shared with my congregations when I was transitioning, when I was leaving. Some of you will have had wonderful and enriching spiritual experiences with Kendra. And you're thinking, gee, how will I ever continue on? So this is Philippians 1:6. Paul writes, being confident of this, that God who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. So I imagine if I were to ask you of pastors' names that affected your life, there would be different pastors that different folks here would name. That pastor somehow touched their lives. But I want you to know it's no pastor that had touched your life. I'm going to say it again. It was no pastor that touched your life. It was God and God's Spirit. And so as a new pastor comes, and I hope you had wonderfully enriching experiences with Kendra, Pastor Kendra, but I want you to know Pastor Kendra was just an instrument of God. It was God that was touching your life. And if you give your new pastor a chance, the new pastor will touch your life as well with the same God. I have a couple other things I want to share. I've been on both sides of this. I've been a pastor that transitioned 5 or 6 times. And now I'm like you. I sit in the pew. I get told who my pastor's going to be. So I'm experiencing things from both sides. These are some things I would just share with you. Almost every time I left a congregation, there would be somebody come up to me and said, will you come back and do my funeral? And I understand. I understand that because there's a sense that the outgoing pastor knows you and the incoming pastor doesn't know you. But it's in those events, those life events, where you and the new pastor will actually get to know one another. It's never a fair question to ask. Let's see what else I had here. I would encourage you to, in writing, let Pastor Kendra know if she was special to you and how she's special to you. I have in my file cabinet, I have a file filled, because sometimes I need to go to that file, with comments that people have written to me over the years about how God touched their lives through me. It's a wonderful gift that you can give to your outgoing pastor. You'll say it verbally. Quite honestly, I don't write much anymore. Anyone here write very much? You might get a text from me, and that's okay. That's there and possible. But there's something about a note on a piece of paper that you can go back and refer to when you need to. When your life says, I just need an encouraging word. So I encourage you to write a note. Doesn't have to be 6 pages, double space, no mistakes, just a paragraph. During the transition time, it's nice to be aware that towards the end, when things are all packed up and stuff, meals are kind of neat. Whether you bring food in or whether you have them come to eat at your home. And then I have one for the incoming pastor. When we came to Harmonsburg, In transition, I always sent a congregation kind of a letter sharing my biography. Grew up in Spartansburg, served in the Air Force, on, previous appointments. When I came to Harmonsburg and Linesville, I asked if the members there wouldn't write me a biographical letter that shares their family, their extended family, maybe some significant life events that are taking place in the last 6 months. And it helped me to get to know my congregation much more quickly than I would have without that gift. So you might want to think about writing a letter to your new pastor, introducing yourself. Let me tell you, I was always amazed at Dr. Crawford. If Dr. Crawford met you one time, he knew your name. Jim Tubbs isn't like that. Names don't come that easily. But I guarantee you, if you take the time to write a little biographical piece and maybe include a photograph of you and your family, your new pastor will get to know you more quickly than if you don't do that. It's a challenge for the new pastor to be able to get to know all the people in his or her congregation. In your case, it's going to be in his congregation. I want to close this with just a couple other biblical transitions as we think about transitions. How many know the story of Elijah and Elisha? I don't know why God put those two names together. Do you ever get them mixed up? Now, which one is Elijah and which one is Elisha? But again, God didn't ask me, he didn't take my wisdom. But he put these two together, Elijah and Elisha. And Elijah was the mentor to who? Elisha. Okay, you can participate. I don't want you to sit back and relax. And all of us remember how Elijah went away, right? There was that burning chariot of fire, right, that took him away. But before he was taken away, this was a conversation that took place. Elijah said to Elisha, his mentor, "Tell me what I can do for you before I am taken from you." And this is what Elisha said. Elisha said, "Let me inherit a double portion of your spirit." Now that went back in the ancient day when the firstborn got a double portion. Don't do that in your will today. That might cause family trouble. But back in this culture, the firstborn got a double portion. Pastor Kendra, if she were to ask you, what would you like me to do for you? She would love it if your answer was, give to me a double portion of the Spirit that I've shared with you. The last one is Joshua and Moses. Joshua wasn't Moses. He didn't have the history, the miracles, or the face-to-face encounters. But he had God's promise, "I will be with you." And this is what I want you to hear. God isn't interested in clones. He equips new leaders for new seasons. The transition of leadership wasn't about filling Moses' shoes. It was about stepping into a new chapter by faith. So your new pastor is not going to be Pastor Kendra or your favorite pastor. He's going to be who God has created him to be. Let's bow for a word of prayer. Oh God, we have lots of transitions in life. Some we welcome with open arms. But even those have a little bit of fear involved. Others are more challenging. Be with this congregation, be with this new pastor that's coming, that they might do new things in your name. It's in Jesus' name we pray.